The mother rang the house bell repeatedly, but without an answer, so she used the spare key she had to open the door. She entered the house and was shocked by the sights she saw. The body of her daughter's husband, Mikio, was covered in blood and had many stab wounds. She went to search for her daughter, but the grieving grandmother collided with the bodies of her daughter and granddaughter. Suffered from separate stab wounds. When she did not find the body of little Ray, the grandmother hoped that he would still be alive, but her hope was soon disappointed when she went to the top floor to find the body of the little one strangled in his bed. News of the crime quickly spread and caused a shock in the quiet Japanese society, especially since the Miyazawa family had a good reputation. The police quickly began their investigations and listened to witnesses. One witness told investigators that he saw an unknown man walking next to Miyazawa's house, while another witness said he heard the sounds of a fight coming from the direction of Miyazawa's house. The police collected evidence from the home of the murdered family to come up with a scenario about what happened to the family. According to investigators, 10:30 p.m. was the last noticeable activity of the victims, as Father Mikio opened his email. At this time, the killer or killers had cut off the phone lines to the house. The killer climbed a tree and broke into the house through an open window on the upper floor. He found himself in front of the child Ray, so he immediately strangled him until he died. Meanwhile, the father heard a commotion in the upper floor, so he ran there to find himself face to face in front of the killer. The two men clashed, and the father was able to hit and wound the killer, but the latter took out a large knife and stabbed the father in the head with a strong stab that caused the knife blade to break. After killing the father, the killer went to the ground floor and attacked the mother, Masukwa, and her daughter first with the broken knife, then he took out another knife from the family kitchen and finished them off. According to the police, his stab wounds to the mother and daughter's bodies were more severe and deeper, which led some analysts to assume that the killer may have been carrying a grudge towards women in general. Did the killer leave the family home after that? No. As the police said that he spent a period ranging between 2 to 10 hours inside the house, where he went to the bathroom and treated his wound and relieved himself, then he went to the kitchen and ate some food and fruits comfortably, then he used Mikio's computer, where the police found new activity. On the internet at 1 in the morning, that is, 2 hours after the family was killed. Finally, the killer headed to the living room to lie down on one of the sofas and take a nap. Unlike most crimes, the police found a lot of evidence at the crime scene, as if the killer did not care about leaving his traces everywhere. The police analyzed the killer's waste in the toilet, some threads from his clothes, and the knife he used in his crime. But the most important evidence was the fingerprints and a sample of the killer's blood that fell from his wound. But a search in the Japanese police database did not lead to identifying the owner of the fingerprints, which made the investigators conclude that the criminal had no prior convictions. As for the DNA analysis of the killer's blood, it revealed that the killer was of a dual race, as he carried Japanese and Southern European genes, and that he was a young man aged between 20 to 35 years. Despite the abundance of evidence, the police did not determine the identity of the killer, which prompted them to offer a reward of 3 million yen to anyone who provides any information that would help solve the mystery of the family's murder. But despite the generous reward, the police obtained only a few pieces of information. One of them came from a taxi driver who told the police that he had taken 3 men from an area adjacent to the victim's house. They were over 40 years old and that they had remained silent throughout the trip. When they got off, the driver found traces of blood in the back seat, but police could not link the blood to samples taken from the crime scene. Other witnesses said that Mikio had spoken loudly in the days before the crime with a group of skateboarders and motorcyclists in the park next to the family home because of the disturbance and noise they were causing, and that they may have decided to take revenge on him. But does this fleeting quarrel warrant all this grudge? Despite the passage of years, the police have not stopped investigating the case and trying to find new evidence that leads to the killer. The reward for helping to solve the crime recently reached 20 million yen. In 2018, the police found more information about the killer, saying that he was carrying a backpack containing a group of papers and illuminated pens, with traces of sand on them, and that the killer may have been 15 to 20 years old, and that he may have been an immigrant or infiltrator from a nearby country and exploiting the targeted houses were near the train station to commit crimes and then escape using the railway. The killer may be from South Korea, as by analyzing the threads of the clothes that were previously found, it was determined that the type of water they were washed with is widely available in South Korea and is not available in Japan. The most important question remains: what is the motive for the crime? There have been many rumors in this area, ranging from revenge against the family as a result of their high financial situation and comfortable living, especially after it was announced that families residing in this place were given 10 million yen to leave their homes to include them in the neighboring park. The motive may be robbery, but it is not a strong reason as the killer only took a few items from the victim's house despite the long time he spent in the house. There is also a hypothesis that the killer is a mentally ill person who is aroused by the sight of blood, and this may have explained the severity of the stab wounds directed at Yasukwa and her daughter. But despite all the hypotheses and interpretations, the murder of the Stagia family remains a mystery that is difficult to solve to this day. In fact, it is one of the biggest criminal mysteries in Japan when taking into account the coldness, calmness, and bloodiness of the killer. What do you think, dear viewer? Do you have a certain idea about the cause of the crime?